Rudy, I'm going to throw it to you and tell me where you'd like to start today. With what story?
Pablo Rodriguez,
Okay.
because you know what? It's funny. Last week when we spoke, I told you, and I didn't know that it was going to happen, but I told you that all the ingredients was there for a big crisis. I never thought that the following day all those ingredients were about a brownie, and that was this whole big controversy about, for example, what's happening with those brownies. But I'm not going to talk about the brownies because I don't want to have a lawsuit. I'm going to talk about ethics because this is where I think it's going. And those are kind of the information that we learned today at the National Assembly by the new leader, the parliamentary leader of the party of the Liberal Party, saying that he met with the Ethics Commissioner of Quebec and that he wrote a letter to the Ethics Commissioner about maybe, perhaps, and that's why maybe it was the situation between Marois Risky and Madame Hans, the former chief of staff, about the fact that they didn't know how to divide certain employees who were maybe half-time employees of the National Assembly working for a National Assembly member, but also doing work for the Liberal Party of Quebec, and that needs to be divided. So maybe that is what the information that we learned today about where the dispute between Marois Risky and the former chief of staff. But for the moment, Pablo Rodriguez is still doubling down that he doesn't know exactly what happened and what is the reason.
You know, we played a clip before where he simply says, I guess, in answering a reporter's question, I'm available to have to speak to Marois Risky. If she doesn't want to speak publicly, we can speak privately. All she has to do is call me. To which, James Meny, one of our analysts, simply said, "Why doesn't he just go ahead and call her?"
But the other question also is that Geneviève Hans, who was her former chief of staff in Ottawa, that he did put her in this office especially for that. From my experience, as a political staffer, your responsibility is to the leader. So if that person, Madame Hans, had a problem with Marois Risky, I cannot make it that she never called Pablo Rodriguez to inform him that there was a problem. So he can also call her. So that's why there's a big question. And the damage is it questions the leadership of Pablo Rodriguez because it's been, 9 days now that we see a leader who is not showing leadership because everybody is begging the question, why don't you call her? Why don't you call your former chief of staff and figure out what happened? Is it because of parliamentary funds? Is it because of ethics? We don't know yet. And it's not good for his own leadership because all we do is we talk about it.
Can he recover from this, Rudy?
At the moment, no, because this crisis is going to be long. Now the problem is that lawyers are involved. There was a many cease and desist that was sent to, for example, between Marois Risky and the former chief of staff, between the Liberal Party and the Journal de Montréal. So now if everything becomes legal, as you know, the problem in justice is that it takes a lot of time, and it basically neutralized the Liberal Party to have credibility to ask questions, for example, to the government or even him. All the time he does a press conference, all the media are interested in this crisis and not what is his ideas or what he wants to bring forward as a leader.
Okay. I don't want to keep talking about this subject, but in the question of what do you expect will happen next, what would you guess is going to happen?
Look, it depends. For the moment, he was able, for example, to put former opponent, for example, Cal Blackburn and Charles Milliard. They did a photo together yesterday in Montreal. So to show that everybody for the moment is supporting him, but it's just a question of, is there going to be new information? Are we going to learn that perhaps he was informed in the past? That will be very damning for him if there's somebody who said, I did inform the leader, or maybe there was a memo, or maybe there was a letter. All those little things can really hurt him. So for the moment, it's just a question of if there's going to be another shoe to drop.
Listen, there's a story breaking now. I'd not seen anything about this until a few minutes ago about Jean Chrétien, a story about him having given instructions. And tell us what this story is about.
It's a big, big story because, as you remember, during the 1995 referendum, there was always this question that, the margin was very low. You remember, it was less than 50,000 votes. And we learned today that the former immigration minister, Jean Chrétien, received instruction for Jean Chrétien to speed up the process to give and provide citizenship, and that they were working around the clock for months, even in New Brunswick and in Nova Scotia, doing nights and weekends to process as many applications as possible so as many new immigrants can vote in that referendum. So the problem now is that we have on the record a former immigration minister confirming that there was maybe some meddling from the feds in the immigration process to speed up application. And that was the topic in Ottawa. All the questions from the Bloc Québécois was about that. And the problem is we're less than, a year from the next election. That will be something that the Parti Québécois, for example, will use to say, look, the last referendum, there was some tricky parts from the feds.
Rudy, that's 30 years ago.
Yes, but as you know, there's going to be an election on the future referendum.
Yeah, I understand, but are we going to drag this up? Because Jean Chrétien is no longer the prime minister.
But there was never proof. Remember, there was an inquiry, there was a commission, there was the Grenier Commission.
Yeah, they said they never did it. So now we're finding out they may have done it, is what you're saying.
Yes, but now the question is, as you remember, Parizeau said, the problem is that they lost the referendum because of ethnics and money. Now they just give a proof that, yes, they did play to provide passports or citizenship to people so they'll be able to vote. So I'm just saying.
Well, hold on a sec. You're saying they provided passports so people could vote. Well, we don't necessarily know how those people all voted, did we? Or are you saying that they said it will only give you a passport if you tell us you'll vote against the referendum? What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that now the PQ will use that as the Bloc Québécois used that to say that they didn't play by the rule, that there was cheating, the same way that, don't forget, there was a lot of question during the 95, even in Thomas Mulcair's writing, that there were votes that were canceled, there was ballots that were canceled. I'm not saying that all those people who received citizenship voted for the no. We will never know about it. Right. But just the fact that there's doubt about it, that the feds didn't play fair, will be used by the PQ, and that will tell them that that last referendum wasn't fair and that they should have a new one, and will be an argument in the next election in Quebec in October 2026.
Where did this come from today, by the way?
It was a reporter, because it's exactly, you just said that it's the anniversary, it was the 30-year anniversary. So a reporter from the Journal de Montréal called the former immigration minister, who candidly said that he received instruction when he was talking about the referendum. It is the first time that this person was on the record, and that you have a former minister saying that, yes, he was instructed to do that.
By the then Prime Minister?
Jean Chrétien, exactly.
And has Jean Chrétien said anything about this?
Not for the moment.
Well, isn't this interesting? Okay.
So that's why this story will continue.
Okay. Let me get to one last thing. I know we talked about this earlier in the show. It's kind of the deal that isn't quite a deal that might be a deal if other people get involved in the deal, but it's not a deal yet. This is Ottawa. Danielle Smith, Mark Carney shaking hands, looking happy to announce a pipeline deal that's at least anywhere, I don't know, any way you slice this, I guess. It's not happening today or tomorrow, anytime soon.
It's coming Thursday normally. According to the rumors, and again, it's rumors, Mark Carney is going to travel to Alberta and sign an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with Alberta on possibly a new pipeline. But the question is, what is that MOU? What is the fine print? Because as we already discussed many times, Aaron, in the past, as you know, the Premier of British Columbia is against it. The First Nations are against it, for example, in the northern part of British Columbia. But it looks like there's going to be a deal between Mark Carney and Danielle Smith to basically give a green light to Danielle Smith and say, if you're able to convince British Columbia, you have the support of the federal government. But for the moment, all of that is rumors. And the difficulty is that it may hurt also Mark Carney because, as you know, in his party, there's, for example, people who are liberals who are against a pipeline. Right. So that it will be difficult not only for him in British Columbia, but also inside his party, and perhaps a fight with the BC Premier, Mr. Abbey.
I want to ask you one last thing, just really quickly. The whole who cares thing now, the Mark Carney, when he was asked about meeting with Donald Trump, then we found out today that he's actually going to meet with, apparently, Donald Trump within the next 2 weeks. Was this a gaffe as far as you're concerned? Because I heard Tom Mulcair say this morning he thought Carney's answer was great.
He apologized today in the House of Commons, and he said that he made a mistake. and that he should have said that, and he didn't use the right word. So he did apologize today for his comment about who cares. So yes, he will travel to Washington, but the reason for him to travel to Washington is not to meet Donald Trump. Maybe a meeting will happen. They'll be in the same room, but is for the World Cup that will happen between Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., and this is to launch the World Cup that he's traveling to Washington. But as you know, in politics, when you have an opportunity to talk to the U.S. president, you take it.
There you go. Rudy Husny. Rudy, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.